Hey, 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 it's AAA Wednesday. That means it's my Ask Alyssa Anything session where I'm answering your questions about querying, the publishing industry, and how to strengthen your story. Keep the questions coming. I'm loving getting to speak to your specific concerns and hear more about your particular situations because I know I can't get back to as many of the comments that I want to. If you're enjoying these sessions, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button because it helps my videos and my channel reach more writers just like you. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're not already a member of this amazing community of writers. I promise you won't regret it. We have some great questions on deck today, so let's dive in. I'm currently revising my manuscript for the 5th time. It's changed so much since the first draft, and I feel it's the strongest it's ever been. However, it seems like most books go through even more changes and revisions when working with an editor. Could you elaborate on how much developmental reworking typically goes into a manuscript after it's acquired by a Big 5 publisher? I'm interested in what makes a publisher know they want to buy a manuscript but also expect to rework it, sometimes in major structural ways. You're spot on here in that once a book is acquired by an editor at a publishing house, it does go through developmental editing before it is ready for publication. As for what makes an acquisitions editor know that they want to work on a book, even if it requires major structural changes, that comes down to their vision for the story aligning with yours. So how this often happens is editors will review the manuscript from a literary agent and keep notes on what they think is amazing about the story, as well as things that they would want to see changed if they were to work with this author and ultimately publish the book under their imprint. Then they will typically speak with the author and the literary agent before they make a deal to work together. This is really, really important because before you enter into that editorial relationship, you need to know what that editor's vision for the book is and make sure that it aligns with your own. If that editor has a vision for taking the story in a different direction than you intended, then that's probably not going to be the right home for your book, right? So it is standard for an author to have that type of conversation with an editor who is interested in making them a book deal offer. That's also the person you're going to be working with directly as you go through the publishing process, so it's very important to get to know them and make sure that you're jiving with each other before you enter into that relationship. An editor at a publishing house doesn't necessarily shy away from making an offer if they love the story, even if they think it still needs major structural work. I saw it many times with editors I worked with. They would just fall in love with the character or with the premise of a book and with the writer's style and voice. And they were willing to take the structural editing on because they loved it so much and they had a very clear vision for it. Now, on the flip side, if an editor is reading a submission from a literary agent and they admire the writing or they like the premise, but they don't have a vision for how to take it to that next level, they are most likely going to bow out and they're not going to make a book deal offer. Those editors really are trained in developmental work, structural work, and want the story to be as strong as possible, obviously, and are only going to work on the projects for which they have a very clear vision and for which that vision aligns with the author's vision. Here's another question. I have a question about sensitivity readers. Can you ask traditional publishers to implement them in the editing stage? If you can't, what stage should you implement them in your writing process? For example, before getting an agent or before formal editing. Working with sensitivity readers, also commonly referred to as authenticity readers, is becoming more and more commonplace in the traditional publishing sphere. That's because publishers want to make sure that they are publishing the most authentic version of the story possible and that they are representing any communities in an authentic way that is going to resonate with readers and not come off in a way that they don't intend, right? So if your novel involves an underrepresented community, it is possible that your publisher would solicit sensitivity readers to review the manuscript as part of your publishing and editing process. As for whether it's valuable to work with an authenticity reader before you get an agent, that's ultimately a decision up to you. If you're unsure about your representation of specific characters in the book, then it could absolutely be a worthy investment to work with an authenticity reader to ensure that those characters and those scenes are coming across effectively. It's not a requirement before seeking a literary agent, But if it's going to ultimately strengthen your story, you do want to present a literary agent the strongest version of the story possible. It's also possible that it could be a conversation that you have with your literary agent when you are going through the editorial process with them. They might ask if you have worked with authenticity readers or might recommend that you do so. So there's really no stage at which it's too early to engage an authenticity reader if it makes sense for your story. We have time for one more question today. Is it true the Big Five only publish 2 debut novels per year? So similar to my other recent Q&A video where I responded to a comment about only 1% of authors getting published, there are these statistics that circulate around the writing community that I'm not sure where they come from. So in this case, I've never heard the statistic that publishers only publish 2 debut novels per year. When I was in the industry, there was never a cap set on how many debut novels were published. That's really not how the industry thinks about things. They're thinking about what books are going to sell, whether it's by a debut author or an established author. Of course, it is probably more likely that they're going to put more credit behind a established author just because that's an easier bet for them to make, right? They have a track record. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to publish debut authors. And if you want proof, just buy a one-day pass for publishersmarketplace.com or borrow someone's login and look at the debut fiction category. That will show all of the book deals that have been made to debut novelists. And I promise that there are going to be more than 2 per year. I made another video about destigmatizing the debut author experience, so check that one out because it covers a lot of the same territory. The bottom line is that no, publishers are not capping their acquisitions at 2 debut novelists per year. Sure, they are going to publish fewer debut novelists than established authors who already have a readership and a career, but every single one of those established authors was a debut author at some point that a publisher took a chance on. So publishers are still out there ready to take those chances on debut novelists today. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question, and if you have something you'd like to ask, drop it in the comments here and it will be added to my queue. Before you head out, please hit that thumbs up button because it really does help out my channel. Hit that subscribe button to join this amazing community, and don't forget your free story self-assessment worksheet and my newsletter link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and happy writing.